Hello, and welcome to the Friday voice chats of the Men's Human Rights Discord server. We are the semi-official Discord server of the Men's Rights subreddit, and Happy New Year! Happy 2022. This is going to be a big year for us. We have a lot of stuff planned. The men's rights movement, in my opinion, is on the cusp of joining the mainstream conversation of politics and society. And this year, we have a lot of things coming your way. Thank you, everybody who is joining us and who has supported us all this time. I remember almost 4 years ago, it was that we started this server, and it's grown so much because of all the support from all of you. Welcome, Tim. By the way, Tim Goldich is the Vice President of the National Coalition for Men. Thank you for being here. So we're just kind of talking about our ideas for the new year moving forward and what we want to do. And something that I'm suggesting is to get involved in local politics. Write to your local mayor or write to your local congressman or congresswoman or state senator. Start getting involved in politics. Doesn't matter Democrat or Republican. Just start getting involved in local politics and start getting involved in the local scene. I think this is here the men's rights movement can really take a big step up. I think we've seen a lot of progress in the very recent years, the last 24 months especially. I think the men's rights movement has definitely seen an evolution, and I think we're starting to be seen as more mainstream. This is an opportunity for us to really step forward. And I did a video recently about how something I like about the men's rights movement is how diverse we are. We have Republicans, we have Democrats, we have Trump supporters, we have Biden supporters, we have men, we have women, we have people all over the spectrum, LGBTQ, straight, gay, bi, black, white, everything. Literally all human beings are represented by this movement. And I think that we have a serious opportunity to really take a step forward, especially now that society seems so divided and so chaotic. I think a lot of people would appreciate a kind of voice of moderation emerging from the mists, coming forward and stepping forward with a beacon of positivity and hope. And that's something I think we can provide. So I think this is the year. My resolution for 2022 is to really step up my public activism. But when I was younger, I would do things like spray paint a wall or graffiti a tag, and that was fun when I was younger. But now I think it's time to really get serious. Let's get involved in local campaigns. Let's get involved in local politics. Let's put together petitions. Let's put together international projects. Let's really make ourselves a serious and professional voice on the world stage. So that's kind of my introduction, and that's kind of my idea for 2022. That's kind of what I want to do.
Thank you, Blue. Sorry, carry on, Tim. You wanted to say?
Oh, I just was following up with Happy New Year, and yes, I concur with Blue Orange. All right, so here's where I come from a position I call equalism. So equalism proceeds from the initial premise that woman and man are and have always been equal, not the same, but equal. Two ends of a balanced beam need not be identical to weigh the same. I see woman and man as equal partners, playing an equal overall force of influence in the human system, equally responsible for outcomes. That it has always been so. And I present the issues of men and women as sort of mirrors of each other. And I suggest that it all balances out in the big picture. That men more respected but less loved, women more loved but less respected. It's been a balanced system throughout history, and where we want to go from there is up to us. But I believe that if we proceed from the assumption of man bad, the overempowered oppressor victimizer, woman good, the innocent victim, our future will be poisoned accordingly, because we'll be proceeding upon a lie, a falsehood. Men do not have the power, women are not the victims. And if we proceed from a false premise, well, we get a poisoned results. So my whole thing is to try and balance out the gender belief system so we can build a gender politics and gender relations of the future on an even and true foundation.
I really like that. That's a very good way of putting it. I've always thought of men and women as complementary halves. I think that's pretty much your stance on it. Would you say?
Yeah. Yeah, I think the world of women applies an equal overall force of influence in so many ways, some we don't understand. I think the evolution of human parenting has been equal to the evolution of human technology in terms of the overall influence on our what I'll call our social evolution, if you will. Yeah, in so many ways, we just don't understand female modes of power. We only understand female senators and CEOs. Those are women who happen to be wielding a high-end form of male power. But I've explored in depth what female power is, what it's comprised of, how it works, what channels it works through, and how it's equal to male power.
Could you maybe go through some of those?
Sure. So I have a video of 14 modes of female power. There are things like beauty power, sexual power, moral authority, motherhood power, vastly greater powers to elicit empathy and inflict shame, higher average emotional verbal acuity, domestic power, greater spending power, majority vote power. It goes on and on and on. Each of these elements of female power are like worthy of like a book length treatment. There's just so much to say about the greater power to elicit empathy. That's the power that raises only female concerns to the level of major societal concerns. So there's just so much we don't, as a society, understand about female power.
It's very interesting. Do you perhaps have any ideas about how we could maybe equalize the power structure?
Well, I think the power structure is already equalized. The only thing that sort of causes a certain imbalance is that we know male power and we have mechanisms for constraining it. They don't always work, but we do have various mechanisms in place to put boundaries on male modes of power, which we recognize and understand and at least tend to hold man accountable for his power. The big difficulty with women is there's a there's a deep denial of female power. Female power is more subjective. It's not so easy to quantify, and we have no structures in place really for constraining it or holding women accountable for the power that she wields. We sort of
Yeah,
instinctually prefer a model of gender reality in which men have the power, women are the victims. Um, it's actually an erotic story. It's the story of hot hunky heroes, empowered alpha males coming to the rescue of sweet, weak, pure, beautiful, innocent damsels in distress. And it's a story as old as the hills, and it's really tough to break that. It's really, really difficult. But that I see as the central challenge in trying to move forward is to raise awareness of female power and male victimization, but not as an end in itself, but really as a means to understand that it all balances out. And from there, could envision that as a place to start all over. Woman and man calling it even and starting all over with gender politics and dealing with gender issues as matters of shared responsibility. That's the equalist sort of vision in a nutshell.
that would be
I
pretty
think
good.
I think that's wonderful. I think that I think starting over from scratch and then realizing that we need to start off from an equal standing point is an amazing thing. And I think more people would understand. I think women have certain things whenever it comes to them having power, and then men have certain things whenever it comes to them having power. But in reality, it's all the same. We all try to achieve it in different. However, the approaches and the way that we achieve it, that happens to be different.
Yes.
Yeah, it's interesting that we've well, not
I
we,
always
but
say,
go on. I was just going to say it's very interesting that so many, well, this the dominant ideologies have basically developed this idea that men are solely privileged and solely oppressing, when what it really is that men have more obvious power and women have much less obvious power, but the less obvious power often trumps the more obvious power. It's subtlety versus
Yeah,
like, yeah.
way of looking at it is male power is yeah, monolithic. It's unavoidable, but it's sort of limited to just the elite males have it. Female power is spread more evenly, wider. It's thinner, as it were. If you look at it like if power was butter, butter's like men have their butter sort of centralized on the toast, and women have theirs spread more evenly throughout the sisterhood. And so any one place you look for female power, it seems thin and unconvincing, but it's the same overall amount. It's just spread thinner and wider.
right, and so
Uh,
when feminists talk about male privilege and male power, they talk about how, oh, well, it's men who have the ability to start a war and declare a draft. But 99% of men are victims of that draft. It's only that top 1% in politics who actually has the power. So when feminists rebuttal to the draft is, oh, but it's men who started it. No, it's a very small fraction of men who started it. It's the majority of men who have to suffer in a greater way than women do.
yeah, it's and yet it's so hard to convince people that this is the case when it's just so obvious. I mean, every single like spy movie and things like that, they all have like the femme fatale who uses her like, yeah, she just waltzes in there, like huge glamour shot. All the men turn to look at her and drop their jaws. It's just like she's the powerful one, they're the weak ones. And yet that somehow slips under the radar. I don't know how, but it's like I mean, it's that famous line, what was it? They're called boobs, Harry, or something like that. It's just like, how are you gonna get in there? It's 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 kind of shocking. It's just the ways that, I mean, if you go to more traditionalist societies, you'll notice that the women have massive power. They'll have the men will go out and work, and while the men are out at work, the women have their entire, like their own power structure centered on the home and centered on the community, and like it's matriarchal, and it's like the old woman will come around and like boss the younger woman around, and they'll boss the kids around, and they'll boss the men around. it's it's just that if anything, feminism took women's power away, because they basically destroyed a lot of that by destroying the family unit.
Yeah.
And so women didn't have this interconnected thing anymore. Suddenly every woman is an island, and men are a different island. And to be honest, if you want to destroy society, that's pretty much how you do it. But if you want to destroy female matrilineal power, that's a good way to destroy that as well. Because the only power they seem to value is male power,
Right.
which is strange because they're using female power to get it. So maybe what they're really out to get is just a monopoly on all power. And
Yeah.
that's probably a good
Supremacy.
assumption.
Yeah.
What I'm seeing here is like whenever it comes to like what I'm seeing here is that they're using female tactics to achieve male things.
Right.
And that's but here's the thing. I think it's honestly because, even though yes, we are equal, but we have different ways that we go about things. And they think that these other ways will be, will get them what they want, and that's not necessarily the case. So we have to start, I think what society has to do is, I think we have to start talking to one another and discussing things in a better manner, instead of going about this in a very negative way, because I think that's what's happening. I think the majority of the time, honestly, I think some things that females are doing that are wrong. I think it's classic signs of projection.
Yep.
But then there are certain things that, well, maybe they're just a little power hungry, and maybe they need to, realize, hey, men are not out to get you. They're not out to hurt you. They just want their voices heard as well. And I think we need to have, and honestly, I think it's all relational. We need to start having better relationships with people just in general, and maybe we'll achieve what we need to achieve a lot better.
Well, there's a point I'd like to make here, if I may. I would suggest that this whole men are the power, women are the victims gender belief system has been a disaster all around. As Madison points out, and others, it's the world of women that has been really sort of attacked by feminism and diminished and sort of denigrated by the feminists. And every measure of female power has plummeted in recent decades, and all over the world, the most feminist cultures produce the least happy women. There's just so many ways in which feminism has been a mindfuck for women. It's telling them that they are the powerless victims in all things, which is emotionally self-fulfilling, and it's living a lie. It's telling women that there's a boogeyman behind every bush ready to jump out and attack them, which is terrifying. There's all this emotional poison that feminism tells women, that their legacy is nothing but property and chattel. I mean, it's all very, very poisonous stuff that they're filling women's heads with. So the point is, I think in fighting this men have the power, women are the victims paradigm, we're really working for the benefit of all people, not just men. And so I think Blue Orange is right. I think we can present something better. This whole thing, this whole gender politics has been set up for the last 50 years, has been such a catastrophe all around, that I think what Blue Orange says is correct. We can present a much more positive. We can focus on things like healing the gender divide, and repairing the social fabric, and these kinds of things that you could bring the general public on board with.
It's going to be very difficult considering the level of tribalism that's been set up. We've basically been taught that men and women are completely different tribes. Men and women are from different planets. Even it's making it very, very hard for men to relate to women and vice versa, without either idolizing them or just treating them like other people of their same gender. It's we've had a lot of our social skills removed. I think if you look at the fiction and stuff like that that's being put out there, they're basically trying to set us into some sort of gender war.
Yeah.
If you look at books like, I think it's called The Power, or there's others out there. There's ones where society is divided into, and on one side men have power over women, on the other women have power over men, and stuff like that. And I guess the overall view of that one is that it's not good for any one gender to have all the power. But you can tell from books like that, even before you read them, that it's going to end up being men bad, we've got to take a female sort of perspective on this, and like you've got to use male power but in a female way and stuff, and it's all twisted up, and men have got to learn from women, and women don't have anything to learn from men, and like they've got to, it's the kind of thing you get in kind of 1800s early 1900s sort of fiction, where the white man goes over to Africa or India or somewhere like that to educate the locals. And it's that kind of condescending sort of attitude, I think. Like the locals are savages, and we've got to educate them, and they're if they're attacking us, then it must be because they're evil, not because we did anything wrong, like for example invading their country. It's all very one-sided, and I think we need to start seeing both sides. But while we have this massively powerful network of journalists, media people, and so on, who are quite capable and find it quite easy to shut down any conversation about this from a neutral or pro-male perspective, I'm not sure we're going to be able to do it through traditional channels. I think that the real boon to this, taking this down, is the internet. We need basically to go about the internet and change things there. I think that centralizing the movement would help that, like bringing people into the conversation. This is why we're so open on this Discord server. We don't want this to be a bottleneck of like people coming in and then the viewpoints stagnate and we just talk about things. We want people to go out and do things, and we want feminists to come in here and talk to us and understand that there is another point of view. We want general people to come in here and understand that there are different points of views and things like that. And it would go a long way to stopping this idea that feminism is the only equality movement, and if you're not a feminist, you are evil.
But I think we've done a very good job. You're talking about fighting against tribalism. This group is an example of defeating tribalism, because look at the wide spectrum we have in this group. We have people who are left-wing, people who are right-wing, people who
What
are
up?
LGBTQ. I mean, everything. We represent kind of everybody. This group is one of the most diverse groups I've ever come across, both in terms of demographics and in terms of beliefs. So I think you could almost look at this group as a model for the next step.
Yeah, because here's the thing. I am probably the most conservative person that you will probably in this chat currently right now. But at the same time, I'm willing to hear from the left so that way I can get to what I seem or what we think is right, because I am right wing and right leaning. So, it's quite awesome the fact that there are people from all backgrounds and we are willing to, hear each other out and make other people's voices matter in this movement. However, we still have to stick to our guns, but be respectful at the same time. So, yeah.
Curious. So
Is
there anybody here who is kind of more left-leaning? Want to respond to that?
I am somewhat left-leaning, and I'm willing to hear any opinion. That's all I have to say.
Yeah, I think most of us here are actually like centrists or left of center, right of center. And that's the kind of political area where I am, because I feel like if you are in the middle, you can agree with points from both ends of the spectrum, and you don't have to be tied down to a particular tribalistic sort of narrative where one side has to have everything right, like their entire all of their ideas have to be right, and they all have to be you all have to be on the same color, you have to be the same sort of, you're voting the same way, and you have to be voting for the candidate even though you might not like the candidate because it's their party or party. But if you're more in the center, you can just go, okay, who's the best, what's the best idea from this side, what's the best idea from that side. And so basically we've created at least I hope we've created a very non-partisan sort of space here where people can, we often have debates here that cross party lines. So
well, I think we all have different strengths and probably do different things well. I like Blue Orange's suggestion of getting involved in politics in any way one can. If one's suited to that, I don't know. To me, it's all the poison is in the gender belief system. It's believing that men have the power and women are the victims, and it's acting out of that belief. Anything we can do to discredit that falsehood, just to break it, is it's primarily what stands in the way. I mean, if we believe that men have the power, we're going to be motivated to take power away from men. If we believe that women are the victims, we're going to be motivated to want to extra advantage and protect the innocent victim. It's the belief system that's causing it to be just so stuck. Nothing can move. We're just fixated on this idea that man bad, overempowered, oppressor, victimizer, woman good, innocent victim. Nothing can move when we believe that.
Well, I think one thing we can use to add some grease is to explain how feminism is victimizing women. Because
Yeah.
if you can show that, which is very easy to show, in fact,
So?
we've done it today, then you can show it can cause a feedback loop where, feminism really is the patriarchy. They are what they describe as the patriarchy because they are in all of government and they are directing, men to grant privilege. It's just that they're not granting privilege to men. They're granting it to, specific women, basically, while making the rest of women extremely afraid. I mean, it's the number of women it seems to have damaged is extraordinary.
Oh,
Instead of going into therapy, instead of coming to terms with their trauma, feminism encourages women to weaponize their trauma against men. And that is, calling it poisonous is underselling it, really.
yeah.
Feminism is like that banned stuff they had from World War II that eats through concrete and sets the ground itself on fire and stuff like that.
Oh, Lord.
See, on the one hand, feminism is all powerful, but on the other hand, it's very fragile. It's very vulnerable. It's all based on a lie. If you can expose the lie, feminism will crumble.
Then, not to mention, on top of that, feminism for me, I think nowadays is actually making women weaker than stronger because now, because of the victimization complex that they've developed over time, now we're not going to get anywhere. We're not going to get anywhere because now they're thinking all emotionally. They're not thinking logically where it comes to, creating bills to make sure that one person's voice is heard and then the other one's is heard. And there's so much chaos, I would say. There's so much chaos within the feminism movement that at this point, a lot of people, they're going away to the point because they don't want to hear it. They don't want to hear it because there's such a storm of brain. I honestly, to compare it, I feel like it is a woman who is super pissed off And I feel like feminism is about a person that is very, very pissed off, very, very angry, and is just taking it out on everybody else. Just taking it out. Just is like, you know what? If I can't be happy, nobody can be happy. And that is what it is causing. It is causing misery amongst, people, including men and women, including a bunch of misery. And I'm willing to get a baseball bat and knock them out and put them out of their misery.
Let's not go that far. We don't want to advocate violence, honestly.
I'm just saying, like, metaphorically.
Metaphorically, or
Yeah.
honestly, yeah.
Yeah.
But one thing we can do is get feminists to cancel their core theorists. That's something I've wanted to do for a while. And it's the reason that you'll see on our website an article talking about the dire extremes of toxic feminism, where we go into some key feminist theorists and historical feminists who have said that like 90% of men should be eradicated. And it is weird how many of them have settled on that exact number of 90%. It's quite a surprising number.
I'm only aware of Sally Michelle Gearhart. What is her name?
Sally Miller Gerhardt. Mary Daly said it as well. And
Okay.
there's a whole bunch of others. We found a Victorian woman who said it. There's a lot. It's quite extraordinary, but you'll have to get the full list off of the website.
Okay, good. I would.
Yeah, we're going to also do a follow-up on famous feminist. How do I put this without deviance? We've got not Gerhardt, what's the name? Dworkin and Germaine Greer are both very famously worse than anything that these famous celebrities have been doing, bar Jeff Epstein.
Right.
I
agree. Yeah.
They're quite horrifying. Madonna's on this list.
I mean, she's put a lot of poison out there, saying that the most dangerous place for a woman is not wartime or out on the streets, but at home with her husband. That's terrible, destructive, poisonous thing to say.
Madonna, let me tell you, no, the dangerous place is actually sorry, but this is a joke. Dangerous place for a woman is around toxic other women. Okay.
Well, I've actually heard quite a few women say that, but I'm not going to stipulate one way or the other, because I feel like society should be more balanced and people should be exposed to both genders in equal regard, because men can become very toxic when they're all like contained on their own. Women can become very toxic when they're all contained on their own. I don't think it's one way or the other.
Yeah, but I think it all balances out. So that's the phrase I use. If you want to, my tactic would be to put that out there. I think it all balances out is the most provocative statement we could make. I think it would be irresistible. I think comedians and so on could not resist it, making pot shots at it. It would be ridiculed. It would be the subject of all kinds of articles and event. At first, it would be heavily ridiculed, but over time, I think it would prove bulletproof. I think if you're looking for a soundbite that was likely to go viral, it all balances out would be what I'd go with.
It's an interesting.
What would what would the exact wording be, Tim?
The short would be it all balances out. The longer version is in the power and joy and the victimization suffered, and the freedoms, the constraints, the joys, the sorrows, the good, the bad, light and shadow. It all balances out between woman and man, and it always has.
I think that what we should probably do now is consider ways in which we can actually get our message out there, like ways which we can get around this censorship that they can't actually fight. I mean, the internet is one way, but that depends on the internet remaining free, which isn't a given. The internet could become an isolated series of islands controlled by various governments. It's already partially become that, what with the weird European laws that mean that suddenly I can't actually access a lot of American news sites because, well, it just comes up with a blank thing and I have to use a proxy. Although that has given rise to VPN usage, which I think is a good thing. But I do think that we need other ways, like we need some solid ways around this, like mass media ways that can get the message out there without being shot down by these people who don't even want to listen because they know they're wrong. I mean, that's, I think, something we really need to realize. The moderate end of the spectrum are the feminists who are taken in by these people, but the hardcore feminists who moderate these spaces know they're wrong.
Yeah.
They know they're wrong, or they are so damaged that they can't tell fiction from reality. And it's I'm not sure which of those is more scary, but there are an awful lot of dark triad personalities and dark quadrad personalities in this, and we are lucky that we have been able to take down some of the worst feminist spaces on Reddit by constant reporting, and we can thank some of our own for reporting in on that. And yeah.
Well, feminism is guilty of terrible intellectual crimes. You really list all of what they've done, claiming that, say, for example, the largest cause of the birth defect, more than all other causes combined, is men beating up on pregnant women. See, I mean, the depth of the crimes committed by feminism upon society, upon women, and so on, everything. It's only natural. I mean, they're going to do anything to prevent exposure. I mean, they're always based on a false premise, and they're going to want to do anything to protect themselves from. I mean, it's like they've committed a terrible crime. What the crime is bad, but then what follows the crime? Cover up. You know, it's like it's been a massive sort of feminist cover up, and you have to understand that. I mean, if feminism were really revealed, if it really came out, if suddenly it became okay to critique feminism, there'd be like an ocean of the shame that would be heaped on feminism. Is almost unimaginable. What the feminists have every reason to fear exposure. This is, you have to understand. So trying to reason with them, those feminists that know full well the weight of the crime that they're a part of, are not going to confess. They're going to do everything they can to protect themselves from accountability for what they've done.
I think it's worth noting that a lot of the feminists up at that end of the spectrum, where they know it's a lie, are quite probably like Sarah Champion, who was on the UK Domestic Violence Committee to gender the bill and stop it being equal, where they excluded male charities and things like that. She's a domestic abuser, like out and out. She's been arrested for it. Her husband has said that he's terrified of her. So this is the woman that they allow on this committee. So what are the others like?
Yeah.
What have they got in terms of baggage that we aren't being told about because nobody's dug it up, because nobody cares, because when you beat on a man and you're a woman, people will make excuses for you. They'll laugh and cheer it on. I mean, that's something we've seen. It's not just in that BBC experiment that they've now hidden. It's in countless other people who've replicated it online. You'll see dozens and dozens of these, and sometimes side bystanders will join in. Like the woman will be beating on the man, and some other woman will come along and slap the man upside the head.
Yeah.
So that is something we've really got to overcome, and I think it's their most powerful weapon is this empathy gap. It is the only reason they get to play victim so much, is that they get additional sympathy. It's like every turn in Monopoly you get handed extra money and you get to take it off of the other players and you get to have as much as you want. But that's depressing, but there are ways to fight it. You can build sympathy for men. We have had it's more difficult, but we have had success with that. We have helped a few people to understand
Yeah.
that
It's been so slow.
be victimized.
Yeah.
It's a major reason that we put men's stories on our website. If you look at our website, by volume, I think at least half to most of our articles are stories about men's lives or just people vouching on their behalf in terms of their, what they've seen other men go through. That trans article we did recently was all about how the boys in schools were basically they would be punished for things the girls did. They would be there was one time where the person who wrote the article was messing about. The boy next to her got told off, and she voiced up saying, actually, no, it was me. And then the teacher was just like, okay, no punishment. Yep. Like the detention just evaporated.
Yep.
It's yeah, I'm probably not telling that story quite right, but you can read all this stuff on the website, which is what it's there for.
Yeah. I know.
I mean, I'm sure everyone here's got stories like that. Does anyone want to tell one of them? Because I mean, I know that Blue actually has some, but I think he's just gone off to work. Yeah, Cody is entirely correct. Narcissists always appear to be nice until you are on the receiving end of what they're doing, and then they will be the nicest people out there, and then they will flip back to being really, really nice and pretend that it was all your fault. That's pretty much what they do. Yeah, Mad Cat Girl, did you want to talk about this? Yeah. I took pictures secretly of a boy and the boy got detention because I lied that he was the one provoking me. So that was bad. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, it's quite telling that we always, that's pretty much the only direction that story ever goes that I've ever heard. Like you will have outlier cases where some star athlete who's male manages to lie and get away with it about some girl, who isn't a star athlete and who isn't probably particularly pretty or anything like that. But when it's in a equal social situation, the authorities tend to believe the girl over the boy. But yeah, thank you, Mad Cat Girl, for admitting that. It's usually get that story from an angle.
And what? And can I say something real quick?
You don't have to ask.
Okay. Anyway, But what they don't understand about false allegations is that it's eventually going to hurt them too. False allegations hurts women too. Maybe that's what I should say on my channel. False allegation hurts women too. Because here's the thing. If we keep doing this, if we keep falsely accusing men of sexual assault, sexual harassment, rape, all of that, or any sort of, heinous, crime, if we keep doing that, eventually we're just going to get beaten or whatever, or worse, we're going to continue to get hurt and not be believed by the police because there's going to be so many lies out there. Eventually, nobody's going to want to mess with, that sort of thing. No one's going to want to put a stop to it. And then guess what? We're not safe again. And then we'll have to take matters. And then what next? Then what next? Because at that point, false allegations will cause harm to women as well if they don't stop.
Yeah,
They
I
already
agree.
do. I mean, they don't believe. We've gotten to a point, at least in a lot of school systems, and in real life, where there's so many false allegations that the actual real people who are victims and have actually been raped or assaulted or harassed, their cases get thrown away so easily nowadays. Or they're not really listened to because they get so many that they just sort of filter through. And so you've got people who are actually in danger who aren't getting any help at all because they're busy focusing on a case from a woman who doesn't want to admit she lied for whatever the reason.
Something else that doesn't get brought up is that these liars who try to ruin people with false accusations, stopping the media from reporting on false accusations doesn't stop these people from finding out that if they lie about people, they can get away with it and they'll be instantly believed. It emboldens them, and that duplicates and multiplies the accusations that are out there because nobody's dealing with them. Nobody's stopping these people. That's why you get these cases where a woman accuses 8 separate men of raping her in 1 year. That's an actual case from India we just had.
Well, the other issue is too, they're not allowed to bring history up in the court. There are multiple serial accusers out there in the world right now, but they don't get caught because there are specific rules in the court that you're not allowed to bring up any of their other cases. So it would seem so obvious that they're lying if there's so many people they're somehow assaulting them, but you can't do anything about it because the law states that you're not allowed to use other cases within that case.
And you're not allowed to talk about
For the
that sort
victim.
of thing on.
Should specify.
Yeah,
you can do
anywhere.
it for the person you're prosecuting, not the victim, though.
Yeah, that's an interesting dynamic, isn't it?
Mhm.
Tim, you wanted to say something earlier, didn't you?
Oh, I don't know. I always want to say something. So
Sorry,
Yes.
I put you on the spot now.
Yes, you do, Tim. Yes, you do.
yes, I do. Yes, I do. Yes, I've written several books on this subject, and I can just start running at the mouth about any of this stuff. I'm obsessed. So, yeah, I just put in the chat. Our goal is not to reach feminists. Our goal is to reach the general public. We're trying to convince, or we can, debates with feminists are fine, as long as we're keep in mind that you're not talking to this feminist across from you. You're talking to the general public. You're always, your goal is to try and make sense to the people that are watching. Many
Yeah.
of the general public are feminists. Yeah, I know that's true. That's a difficult, but they're probably not, sort of card-carrying feminists. They might not be so indoctrinated, many a person has watched Cassie J's The Red Pill and been flipped right around.
Yeah, I found that the obstacle to persuading, as you say, Tim, a card carrying feminist, someone that is invested, is just the simple reality that as of right now, that person doesn't have enough incentive to give it up. It's a sunken cost issue. They've already bought in the money, time, effort, whatever is already spent. It makes it a lot more difficult to give up. But, for every one like that, there are at least a few that are more like, uh, feminist leaning by default, just the water they swim in.
Yeah.
And they are honestly, one at a time, any of them are not that hard to persuade. If it isn't presented as a challenge to whatever belief system they do have, as you say, Tim, all you have to do is, present them the hand of the person that they, kind of blindly follow, and say, this is what you're buying into. How far do you want to go with that?
Yeah.
But going back to what you said before about things balancing out, you and I have talked about this before. That is true. Things do balance out. These issues balance out. They're either balanced by all of our collective effort, or human nature imposes a balance on us. And right now we have that balance. It's based on fear, mistrust, resentment, bitterness, and anger. But it's a balance. Everybody gets an equal share.
Right. One thing people assume when I say it all balances out is this idea, oh, well, then everything's fine, we'll all go home. No, there's a
No.
balance of misery out there.
Yeah.
Balance of rage, rancor, resentment, victim,
Yep.
vengeance.
Yep.
It's not pretty.
And in my forays across the line, like I say, the easiest thing for me to do is just present that, it doesn't have to be this way. That I am willing and capable to collaborate, forgive, be forbearing and honest and loving. But that doesn't matter if you're not, then we're back to square one. I can do exactly 50% of this and really no more ever. When that's made clear, and like I said, most of these really uncommitted ones, they see reason. Suddenly that more difficult balance becomes very attractive. And
Yeah.
the one that we have now, that they resent it. They're like, why are things like this? Well, because, the other balance takes work. Because it does.
The point there that's made, many in the general public are feminists. It's true. Many are indoctrinated. Of course, it's taught in school, so it's kind of universal. But perhaps one thing about the general public is that they may be getting fed up with this whole gender war. They may be looking for solutions. They may be kind of gotten to the point or getting to the point where this war is no fun. They're getting more and more of a sense that it's really damaging the social fabric and damaging life, quality of life, and they may be open to solutions. They may be willing to start looking at how this war may be de-escalated.
Yeah. Like I said, though, it has to be made, I don't know how you'd say it, appealing, because it's going to take effort. Nobody's going to get out of this without breaking a sweat. Things will have to be sacrificed from both sides. I mean, even if it's just ego. And, to be honest with you, that's a whole lot easier said than done. Like I said, it takes work, and it can't be imposed. It has to be by volition. They have to want to. and right now, like I said, a lot of the public discourse seems to be running hard in the opposite direction. It seems to be promoting more conflict and more outrage and less forbearance and less understanding. The good side of really challenging, a mainstream feminist with a platform is that, Sally Miller Gearhart is a great example, because by her image and by her how she says what she says, it's very seductive. I mean, it looks appealing. But if you point it out in the context of the consequences of it, she was and had been a horrible person, like the whole time.
Yeah.
But it's got to be presented by contrast with somebody that is at least trying not to be horrible. And it's like I say, that means being vulnerable and being honest and being willing to admit that one doesn't know everything or have all the answers. And like I said, I don't see enough of that out there in public. But I know that when I do it one person at a time, I can get agreement and commitment from people that you would never expect. That you would think, oh man, that person's totally out of reach, but they're not. They, at the end of the day, they feel as much without a voice as we do, and they get frustrated.
I do think the swinging back is happening. I think it's happening slowly because they have so much control over the media. If not for their media control, it would have already happened quite a while ago. It would have happened like 4 years ago, maybe. But I can see it happening very, very slowly. I've been calling it for a while. And I do think it's going to be rough for a lot of people. And I do think that there's a potential for it to swing too far the other way. But our main worry should be that we don't let it come back. If it does go, we can't let it come back, because one of the major things that you see with this kind of movement is they teach their kids, and then in 10 years, the kids are teenagers and they're all over social media, and they restart the entire thing. And we've had long enough that most people have really forgotten about it, if they knew about it to begin with. Old wounds have healed over, memories are gone, and then we have a new generation of activists in college. We have a new generation entering the media, whatever the media looks like in 10 years after this ends, and the whole thing starts again. I mean, I think this is genuinely why we're seeing a resurgence of people who are saying that communism is a great idea. Like, they've forgotten all the awful bits and they've forgotten all the backlash, and suddenly, it's like the new generation which got taught by their college teachers. It's the same sort of thing. It's the same with almost any ideology. You give it 10 years after the backlash and it'll start resurging. It's the pernicious things. And we need to be there, and we need to say, no, look, this is what happened last time. And we need to have all of these examples ready to show them. We need to show them Sally Miller Gearhart. We need to show, all of our children need to know about these things. So it's, we just can't let society ever forget this, because if they forget, and they will forget, because society has a habit of forgetting things like a week later. It's weird.
But it's like they got ADHD. It's like society has the worst case of ADHD.
Yeah, but it's like that ADHD, it occurs in.
I need to.
Oh, okay.
Bye.
Hi, Tim.
Bye.
Good
It's
to
been
see you,
great.
brother.
See you next week, okay?
All right. But it's like this ADHD that happens in extreme slow motion, so that it's not abrupt. People don't forget overnight, but they do forget over time. And Ma was right. This rise, such as it is, of men's issues and recognition of men, and our plight and all of that stuff, that's a good thing. But that blade has two edges, I mean, as you said, Ma, what we want to avoid is getting right back into the same mess, that we've been in for so long, and that's a narrow window of opportunity. There's only so much time to make sure that A, people don't forget, and B, that not forgetting and that preventing of regressing back to a previous time takes work, and it takes the work of men too. We have to remember that in too many cases, our own arrogance and our own insensitivity, put us in the hole that we were in. We have to agree among ourselves that we're just not going to do that again. That if the cost is our ego, and if the cost is our our unwillingness, to like I say, to be honest, so be it. It's worth it. And the point of the matter is that if it swings back far, if we really regress badly, it's not going to be as bad as it used to be. It's going to be worse. I mean, it by a lot.
I was just going to
So
say that.
yeah, it really
The
will.
Okay.
South Park were actually right about this thing lasting 10 years, but what nobody really expected was how extreme it was.
Mhm.
It's been more extreme than anything we've seen before, as far as I can understand it. They have done so much damage to culture and society. But
Right.
the
I
next
think
time,
the issue,
the next
though,
time will
is
be more petty and extreme. I guarantee it.
I think the thing is, though, Matt, you brought up media. And I think with the younger generation, I think the harder situation, this goes on what Taz said a little, is I think people understand how radical they've gotten. I think we're getting to a point with the media where they're displaying something that does not reflect what the majority of the population knows to be true or believes or agrees with. We see so many radical things in the news, but the reality is not that many people truly agree with it. The thing is, the same people who don't agree with it aren't speaking up either.
Right.
The media is loud, but the media is loud because of the few people who are screaming at the top of their lungs about this, and the media just going with it, and the people who don't really want research, but don't really agree with it, but also don't want to sacrifice going against the media, just reposting it. And that's really where we're at. And so it becomes, when are people going to be willing to sacrifice the reputation in a way that they currently have in a positive light of agreeing with the media all the time to do what's right and start disagreeing with it, so that the media once again reflects neutral and current values of the people and not of the small group that's screaming their lungs out.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head, just because, they do have to be willing to sacrifice, their place in the status quo. Because it's one thing, to come to a place like this and tell us men folk that you ain't happy. But as you know, Darkeisha, it is something else, to go out there in the wild and make it clear that not only is what's going on wrong, but that you're unwilling to just put up with it. And like I said, it's something, it's not that easy to get people to want to do that. Among men that I know who are a little more feminist leaning and a little more, gynocentric, lack of a better word. If you propose it to them in the right way, they will at least break down and admit that, there's a problem. But it's another matter altogether for them to, turn to their own people and say, I'm not buying this anymore. Because same problem. They have, especially a male feminist, has a great deal invested in staying with that. If they lose big. The advantage of being me with nothing is I have nothing to lose. I don't have any place in the status quo. And that's very comfortable. I can say whatever, I see, I can describe whatever I see to whomever I'm talking to, but I'm just a crazy old man. It's something else if it's somebody that's like deeply invested in, like I said, maintaining the gynocentric status quo. You have to be able to, there has to be a consequence. You have to be able to point out to them, look, if you keep this up, X, Y, and Z will happen. You have to make it clear that it's not, that it's inevitable. There is no stopping it. And then, at least they'll be willing to at least whisper about it. Like I say, it's a whole lot easier said than done. We don't have an easy job.
No, but I do think that we can do it through the back door with stories and things like that. We can show what's going on to people and show how things are twisted, and we can find ways to get that story out there. We can we can publish books, we can write all sorts of things. We can doing little indie movies and fund them ourselves and things like that. We can put up websites and Google will can and will and does nerf those websites, but not everyone uses Google anymore. A lot of people use DuckDuckGo, and I don't think that DuckDuckGo is as bad for that. I don't think they care as much about what you look at. So it's the sort of news you get and that sort of thing. I mean, Google will feed you a certain political angle and stuff on their news feeds, but see, Moths uses DuckDuckGo. I use DuckDuckGo. I think half the people here use DuckDuckGo, or maybe Brave's new search engine, which isn't that great yet, but give it a couple of years. It's I think these are the ways to go. I think Google may actually die a slow death of its own overly wokeness, and I hope that people do just leave it, because nobody really wants to be lectured by these big companies who are themselves incomprehensibly morally corrupt and incomprehensibly evil. I mean, there's a reason Google got rid of its "Don't be evil" slogan, and if that isn't a red flag, I don't know what it is.
Yeah, basically they were saying, okay, time to be evil.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it was always basically something that the media could rip on if they did do something bad by mistake, but removing it kind of implies that they want to do bad things. So it's
and Ma, you were mentioning the idea and the practicality of the stories, and it kind of put me on the spot a little bit, because to be honest with you, I'm not a fan of telling my story. I mean, it is kind of harrowing and dramatic and everything, but a lot of it is like complicated and, to me at least, a little boring. You know, it wasn't just one horrible thing after another. It took a long time, you know, but the results were the same. I ended up with in the situation I was in, you know. But whenever I go ahead and tell the story, you know, again, even if it's to somebody that's you know, very gynocentrically invested, uh, for whatever reason, you know, that seems to do things uh, to persuade them that I can't really do any other way. You know, I without telling my story and without making it clear where I came from, you know, then and I've asked myself this, well, why should anybody listen to me? You know, I mean, all I have is these ideas about how things are and how they might be, you know, and you know what they say about opinions, you know, they're just like buttholes. Everybody's got one, you know. So you're right, you know, it is a matter of telling the story. Um, but at the same time, at least for me, I don't know about anybody else, but at least for me, you know, it's an effort and a sacrifice to have to do that. Now, I was at a panel discussion a couple of days ago about emotional support uh, for for people involved in working on, you know, social divides just in general. And a white guy, you know, just a standard issue white dude, was saying that he was telling a story about how he had admitted that he was speaking in another discussion from a place of privilege. And suddenly, you know, that turned his audience around and everybody was listening, you know. And I thought to myself, hearing that, I said, well, you know, if I have to put on a dog and pony show and create a performance just to get a platform, maybe I'm not talking to the right people, you know. Because if, for example, if I were to stand up, you know, out in the wild and say, you know, whatever, hey, everybody, whatever I say or however I am, you know, it comes from some mystical place of privilege. And I am not going to tell you the rest of my story. If, you know, if suddenly all eyes turn to me, what the hell am I going to say? You know, I've shot myself in the foot, you know. Well, like I
You can always
said,
do
you
it
know,
sarcastically. Like open up with the, you know, from a great place of personal privilege and so
Yeah.
on and so forth, and say, you know, just carry on in that. And as you go through, just gradually just tell the story, the most, you know, all of the
Yeah.
most horrible details, and just say, but at least I'm not a, you know, a middle class white woman, you know.
Right. Right.
Like at least I'm not like a college educated, university educated gender studies girl
Right.
with
Yeah.
trust funds.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You know,
two
I
scholarships.
mean, you know, the hell of it is that I can actually make a case, you know, uh, I guess verifying my privilege. You know, for those of you that know, I've got a story to tell, you know, and I ended up with nothing and homeless and for et cetera, et cetera. But the point of the matter is, you know, I am a standard issue, cisgendered, heterosexual white man above a certain age, you know. And the point is that, you know, I also have to turn it around and say, you know, if I was anybody but me, I might not have made it. You know, I might not even be here. So if we're going to talk, you know, I enjoy the privilege of having survived all that. Thanks a lot. You know, and you know, then when people point out to me my privilege, you know, I say, well, you know, please take mine because it's never been anything but a curse on my life. You know, if you want my white male privilege, you are most welcome to it. because it is not what you appear to think it is. You know,
In fact, the majority of men that carry the suicide rate are white males.
yeah, I mean, you know, if we are so well fixed, why do we want to leave so badly? You know, among all of the people that I pay attention to when they speak, the ones that seem least likely to stick around is us. You know, so you know, I don't know. I mean, I always put it right back on them. I say, you know, maybe it's time for us to check out. Let's see what happens. You know, is if we go, what will you have left? You know, it like I say, it's a matter of pointing out the consequence. People have to understand what happens if they get what they want. You know, or if they get what they at least say they want. You know, and I'm always the first one to say, you know, matter of fact, we can make that happen for you. You know, but you got to understand that once we're gone, that's kind of it. You know, like I said, it's no good trying to tell people they're wrong unless you can explain why.
Okay, thank you, Taz, and maybe we can dedicate like an hour to your story next week or something. If you want to do that, just send me a DM or something. We'll we'll do the whole thing if you want.
Sure.
Dark, if you could take us out now because we're well past our normal closing time. Thank you.
Okay. So this has been the Men's Human Rights Discord, the semi-official Discord of the Men's Human Rights Reddit. This has been our Friday chat, which happens every week at 10 a.m. Central, also known as 4 p.m. UK time, 11 a.m. Eastern. Thank you everyone for coming. This has been an amazing chat, and we hope to see you all next week.